Alright, I am back with another video, and today we're going to be tackling the next in the Deity build series, Corellon Larethian. He is basically the creator of all elves and is considered the patron god of elven kind. He governs things held in the highest, esteem among elves, things like magic, music, arts, crafts, poetry, and warfare. And he is basically, if you remember my Grumsh video from last week, he is the eternal rival of Grumsh. They have fought a lot, and he is the reason that Grumsh lost his second eye in the first place, becoming the one-eyed orc. And yeah, his whole thing is kind of like being, basically, if you picture like the most hoity-toity elf imaginable, Corellon Larethian is that elf. Literally draped in gold and like baby blue, wielding a big longbow and a like sidearm longsword. He just embodies everything like your kind of stereotypical high elf would embody. And I mean, that's perfectly fine. I mean, the creator of all elves capturing probably the most common pop culture variation of them makes total sense. So, I mean, oh, and he's also kind of responsible for drow existing as well. And also part of the reason, kind of, maybe somewhat why they're so persecuted by society. Funnily enough, Illustrate is his daughter, so, figure all that out for yourself, a bit of family drama. Regardless, this build was quite fun to make. Obviously, we knew we wanted to make an archer character with a bit of a melee kind of sidearm focus, and overall, I think we've accomplished that quite well. When I say we, I'm talking about me and the rest of the community, because if you didn't know, and if you're this far into the Deity build series, and you don't know, these builds are made with the help of the community over on my live streams, which are held every so often. Usually every few weeks or so we'll hold a big live stream where we come together and discuss the various deities and how to build for them. If you want to be a part of these builds in the future, please feel free to join in on these streams. We have a ton of fun over there, get really, really creative, and, well, I personally enjoy myself, and I hope everybody else does too. So yeah, if you want to be a part of that, or you can also join the Discord and give your input there, as well as submit build requests or discuss your builds with the community. There's a ton of great people over there that are making amazing builds for everyone and just having general fun. There's people organising games for Baldur's Gate 3 and playing together, as well as even potentially tabletop games in the future. Some words have been floating around, so if you want to get in on that, please feel free to join the Discord, make your presence known, come say hi, come and get in on the discussion. We would absolutely love to have you. For the record, no membership or anything required, just find the link on the channel or in the description, and it will never be restricted, I promise. So, without further ado, let's get into the build. Starting off, well, the actual fun thing about this build is the order you take these levels in don't matter. It's all going to come out the same in the wash. It just kind of depends on what you want to focus on more than others. I think you definitely want to at least start with your level in Fighter, at the very least, because I think it makes sense to get that Constitution saving for proficiency, but otherwise you can go hog wild with whichever you want to get first. It really doesn't matter. I'm personally going to be showing the levels kind of in the order that they're just kind of there. I mean, what I mean is I'm not showing a proper level progression here. What I'm showing will work for level progression, but again, you can take these in any order you want, so I'm just going to be kind of displaying the classes in order. So, like I said, we're going to be kicking things off as a fighter. This is going to give us access to every weapon and armor proficiency in the game we could possibly need, which is perfect. And again, that Constitution saving for proficiency is really, really going to come in handy. As well as a fighting style for us, that is archery, giving us a +2 bonus to our ranged weapon attacks. This is going to come in really helpful to basically just mean that we are able to hit our longbow attacks more, because again, this is mostly a longbow build, but it comes with a few extra things as a part of it. And as for our ability scores, here they are. Strength is at an 8, we don't need it as our longbow uses dexterity. Constitution is at dexterity is at 16 because it is our main attacking stat. Constitution is at 14 because it's a nice middle ground, especially for a ranged character who's not going to be in the thick of things if you're playing this character right. Intelligence is at 8, we don't need it. Wisdom is at 12 because it's nice for the saving throws, and Charisma is at 16 because it is going to be an important stat for us in a minute. Skill proficiencies, we have Acrobatics, Stealth, because I've gone with a Wood Elf, which gives us Stealth from our race. The reason I've gone with Wood Elf instead of High Elf is that we didn't really get anything from High Elf that I'm necessarily looking for. You would get a cantrip, and you could have picked up Friends, but Otherwise, all the other cantrips are kind of reliant on your intelligence score, which I'm dumping. So I took Wood Elf here so that we could get the extra bit of movement speed that they could get, and also stealth and perception as well, both granted from our race, just to give us that little bit of extra optimization when it comes to, you know, our skills and our movement speed, because again, ranged builds want as much movement speed as they can get. So, we are going to be getting acrobatics, because it makes sense, it helps us resist being shoved. Stealth. I've gone with the folk hero background to gain animal handling and survival. Again, a chosen of Corellon Larethian here would definitely be considered kind of a folk hero among elven kind for sure. Maybe not even so much as a folk hero as just a straight up elven hero. So I actually see this guy as being very hoity-toity, very much in his own head, being very kind of like, oh, I'm the chosen of the god of all elves. I'm going to take advantage of that fact by exploiting the lower class citizens of my own race to shower me with love and affection because I deserve it, and I'm going to get gold and riches because I come from a background of nobles or something like that. I don't know. Perhaps this guy's actually really, really humble. Play the character however you like. But I mean, look at that face. Look at that gender-ambiguous face, much like Corellion himself. I mean, this guy absolutely turns his nose up at people. Come on, we can all admit it. Tangent over. Next, so, of course, Folk Hero gives us animal handling and survival, and we also get to pick up intimidation as well, which I think is actually, again, kind of going with what I've just said, quite fitting for a build like this. Next up, I'm going to be taking a 1-level dip into Cleric, as always. Taking a dip into Cleric allows us to pick up our Deity, which means if we pick Corellion, we're going to get dialogue related to him when the opportunity arises, so it's perfect for the roleplay, which is what these builds go for. Corellon Larethian, again, I'll just read the little description here, creator of the elves, he oversees the elfin pantheon as a whole, providing blessings to those who study art, magic, and nature. Lovely. So, with that in mind, let's get into what Cleric gives us, and it gives us quite a lot. We don't have the highest wisdom in the world, so just picking up the utility cantrips, such as Thaumaturgy, to give us advantage on intimidation and performance checks, which is honestly perfect for this build, but you consider the skills that we're going to have. Guidance for ability checks as well, and resistance for saving throws. Perfect. Absolutely love it. Our subclass. Now, Corellion has 4 total domains to his name, and the one we're going to be going with is War, because War, again, this is a very combat-focused build. We're very much a champion of the longbow, and I could see this guy also being some sort of, like, one of those, like, war heroes who is, again, this hoity-toity type who boasts a ton of power because of his god. He would probably lead the charge against an orc army of Grunch as well, so I could see this guy stepping onto the battlefield, getting ready to fuck shit up, and he's like, he's like one of those guys who comes on the battlefield and everyone's like, oh shit, he's here, and then he just starts, like, he always gives you, like, Gilgamesh from Fate vibes. I haven't seen Fate in a long time, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this guy. So, War Domain. Oh, this video's... the commentary is already very, very strange. But War Domain is going to give us a few things, namely Divine Favour and Shield of Faith, 2 very nice buffing spells for us, as well as War Priest, allowing us up to 3 times per long rest, make an extra attack as a bonus action, allowing us to basically just go ham for a little while with our attacks, which is nice on a longbow build. So obviously, if you're playing a ranged build, unless you're using dual hand crossbows, you're not using your bonus action as much, so this actually helps out quite nicely. As I said, we already get the Deity. We also get 2 prepared spells, and again, every ranged build loves Sanctuary, allowing you to basically, for free, as a bonus action, just get the hell out of there with absolutely no consequence, because Sanctuary makes it so you or an ally, probably most likely yourself, cannot be harmed. Unless you take damage from area of effect spells, but enemies cannot directly harm you, meaning that opportunity attacks don't work against you, so you can cast this, dash on out of there, and get into a good position to be able to shoot from afar, and you can keep dashing to get as far away as you need to and all that good stuff to keep your enemies at bay. It really allows you to give the runaround on melee combatants. And your next spell can be whatever you like, it really doesn't matter. The healing spells would be nice, but we're actually going to get these in a different way later, so we don't need to pick these up now. I would say Bless could be a good option, Create or Destroy Water if you've got a lightning caster in your party, or a cold caster who would very, very much appreciate it. It's entirely up to you. In fact, this build can actually work, because if you decide to use the arrow items, like the Arrow of Ice for example, then you can cast Create or Destroy Water and use those arrows to get the double damage, and create ice surfaces as well, so I can actually see this having a lot of utility, so I don't mind picking it up here. Let's go back to Fighter for a while and finish off these levels. We're going to be picking up Action Surge, allowing us to gain an extra action once per short rest. Next up at Fighter level 3, we're going to be able to pick up our subclass, and of course, we're a longbow build. I want Battle Master. Battle Master is going to give us maneuvers that are fueled by superiority die. These are different attacks with different effects that gain extra damage as well as a unique ability. Now you can kind of pick whatever you like here, but there's a few that definitely have greater utility. Trip Attack being one of them. Trip Attack allows itself to be used as melee or range, and since we use melee and range on this build, Battle Master it fits lovely. But Trip Attack at range is going to be super powerful, allowing you to trip your enemies over, knocking them prone, dealing an extra 1d8 damage. And then, because they're knocked prone, they have to get up again, meaning they lose their movement speed to catch up with you, allowing you to play this kind of runaway, keep away game, while also giving your allies who are actually within melee range of this guy, whoever you've hit, to gain advantage on their next attacks. So absolutely a cornerstone of this build. Definitely want to pick this one up. Next up, I did originally go with Fainting Attack because I thought, oh yeah, being able to get advantage would be great, but it only works on melee attacks, which is stupid. It should work on both, but I guess you can't really feint with a longbow. Can you imagine? Hang on. Could you imagine there's like an archer on a cliff and he's like shouting down at the guys he's about to shoot, like, huh? Oh, I could do it any time. I could just let go. I could let go. And it's like, just do it. We can see the arrow coming. I guess I see why it doesn't work. Next up though, Goading Attack would be a perfect option. Goading Attack makes it so that you can goad an enemy into attacking only you. It gains disadvantage on attack rolls against anyone but you. Again, this can be used at range, so fire at an enemy far away from you, then all of a sudden they have disadvantage to hit any of your allies that are nearby. Two amazingly awesome teamwork-based attacks. I think your final one can be kind of whatever you like, it really doesn't matter. I could see something like Distracting Strike or Disarming Strike or Commander Strike all working pretty nicely, so pick one of these top three. My personal favourite probably here would be Disarming Attack, because I like the idea of you shooting an arrow into an enemy's hand and they're forced to drop their weapon as like the arrow pierces through. I think that gives this build a lot of flavour and utility that can work really well. Next up, at level 4, we are going to be able to get our first feat. Now, I would say taking an ability score improvement this early on would make the most sense, and grabbing a bump to our dexterity to really boost up those numbers. As you probably already guessed, we are going to be picking up Sharpshooter at some point, but I would probably save that for the next feat we're going to get in just 2 levels. Next up, at level 5, we are going to be grabbing Extra Attack, making us more effective with our weapons, which is great. And then at level 6, we do get that extra bonus feat, and we are going to use it for Sharpshooter. Sharpshooter, you already know what it does, but I'll go over it quickly. Our ranged weapon attacks do not receive penalty from high ground rules, meaning we can fire from above, below, it doesn't matter, we're not going to get disadvantage. And our ranged weapon attacks take a -5 penalty to their attack roll, which we can offset with items, but in return, deal an additional 10 damage. And you can toggle this feature on and off, so you can kind of choose when to use it when it's most effective. Basically, a lot more damage on our main weapon, which is great. We absolutely want this. And we are done with Fighter. You could go to level 7 of Fighter if you want, to pick up a couple of more maneuvers and an extra superiority die, but they recover on a short rest, so they're not exactly in high demand. So I feel like I want to go over to our next multiclass, which is going to be, where is it, Bard? Bard may seem weird at a first glance, but when you think about the fact that Corellion respects, like, kind of, and it heralds over art, nature, music, it kind of makes sense. And again, if we're kind of going with the idea that this guy is this higher than you, holier than thou type, having a appreciation of the finer arts kind of makes sense. And it kind of takes the idea that I usually build bards with, them being these jovial kind of like merriment, hey types with a bit of, you know, sass on the side. This is just I am using my immense talent to lord over you peasants, worship me type deal. So I think it brings a unique and interesting kind of different angle to a bard, and it works great with our kind of main build that we're going for here, as you'll see in a minute. So we're going to start off with a couple of cantrips, and of course with everything I've just said, the description of this character, we're going with Vicious Mockery. Vicious Mockery is going to have a ton of utility on this build. I mean, it feels a bit strange because it's like, we already have a more powerful ranged attack with our bow. Why does this matter? Well, it gives us an alternative damage type if we need to overcome resistances, but it's also going to create a unique synergy with this build that we're going to get into later. But for now, we can take it just knowing that it's going to be fun, because again, we're hurling insults at people. Taking Vicious Mockery as a bard is mandatory. If I ever make a bard that does not have Vicious Mockery, I have been replaced with a simulacrum who is just uploading videos in place of me, and I am dead. So, I don't know, enjoy the new content, I guess. Perhaps he's doing a better job than me. Right, and we get friends. Because of course we do. Next up for our spells, let's see. Well, obviously I said I want the healing spells, and the reason we're going for the healing spells here instead of on Cleric is because these use our charisma for the healing, because they get a bit of a modifier, rather than our wisdom, so we're going to be picking these up here. I also want to pick up Speak with Animals because it's a great utility spell, and Long Strider for the extra movement speed is always nice. But of course you could also pick up something like Dissonant Whispers as well, but we don't really need it as much as we like to have Vicious Mockery, since this costs a spell slot, whereas Vicious Mockery does not. And you'll see it's not really going to be used as a damage thing, it's going to be used more as a utility thing. You'll see what I mean. Next up, we get to pick our starting instrument, and of course I'm going with a violin. Why? Because it has strings, and it comes with a bow. See what I did there? Yeah? Yeah, I know I'm not really that clever. Right, next up we get to grab a skill proficiency, and I want performance. Because we're a bard, let's just get performance, come on. Let's have some fun with it. Next up, at Bard level 2, we're going to be able to pick up a bunch of stuff. Jack of all trades, you know what this does, adding half of our proficiency bonus to all ability checks that we are not proficient in, as well as a third short rest through Song of Rest. Again, just second level of Bard. If you can afford 2 levels of Bard in pretty much any build, that's third bonus action, short rest is just so worth it, especially on higher difficulty modes. I love Bard. It's easily my favourite class in this game. And we also get to pick up another spell from the Bard spell list, and I would say you can go for Thunderwave, Disguise Self. Nah, he'd never hide his beautiful face. Featherfall, which would make sense if you're going up to like high up places to get a better vantage point on your enemies. Stuff like that. Heroism would probably make a lot of sense, and is probably what I would go with for a character like this, giving us temporary hit points and making ourselves immune to Frightened. Next up at Bard level 3, we do get to pick our subclass, and did you really think I was going to pick anything other than College of Swords? College of Swords is going to give us a ton of stuff, namely the Flourishes, giving us the ability to augment our ranged attacks even further. Defensive Flourish allows us to increase our armor class by 4 if we hit. Mobile Flourish allows us to push an enemy away, and then teleport to them afterwards. Although I can absolutely see this being like Legolas style. There's an enemy on the cliffside. You let loose your arrow with such force, the wind around it seems to be pushed completely out the way, and your enemy just goes flying off the wall, the battlement, the cliff, whatever it is. It's cool. I like it. Probably if they fall off the cliff to their death, you don't want to teleport after them, though. Just saying. And next up, Slashing Flourish, which is the big one. This one allows you to attack 2 enemies at once. Now, the melee version of this only lets you attack 2 enemies that are kind of next to each other in front of you, kind of like sweeping attack. But Slashing Flourish just lets you select any 2 enemies within your range, or the same enemy twice. And considering all of these do extra damage equal to your Bardic Inspiration die, and for us now it's a D6, but it can be upgraded later to a D8, it's a lot of damage. With Sharpshooter adding additional damage as well, you're going to be doing a lot, and since he's taken a different resource than our other maneuvers from Battlemaster, you have a lot of resources to be able to do different things, and by the end of this build, all of it will recover on a short rest, so you're just going to have a ton of extra damage resources to use, as well as just feeling like a total flamboyant badass. It's great. You also do get access to another spell, including up to level 2 spells at this point, and it really is a take whatever you like situation, but I can absolutely see Hold Person to keep that target still, so you can land the arrow perfectly. And we also do get a fighting style, and I'm going to be recommending Dueling. We use a sword and a shield as our melee options here, so Dueling is going to allow us to gain an additional 2 damage with those attacks. Might as well. We also do get 2 expertise at this point, and it's entirely up to you what you want to grab. I can see Intimidation and Performance being good options, but also Acrobatics or Stealth, even if you decide you kind of want to go the Stealth Archer route for a few things. It's entirely up to you, choose whatever you like. Next up at Bard level 4, we are going to be getting our final feat of the build, and I think at this point it makes sense to go with an 18 in Charisma. Now, you do actually have a choice here. Charisma, being at 18, is mainly for spellcasting purposes, but if you care less about the spellcasting and just want to pick up utility spells, then you can leave your Charisma at 16 and put your Dexterity up to 20, or your Constitution up to 16, if you would so choose. I'm going to be going for the 18 Charisma here just to round things out a little bit, because it's going to give Vicious Mockery a higher chance to hit, but you can feel free to do whatever you like with this build. It really doesn't matter overall if you want to focus more on one side of things or the other, or of course I will have options for equipment to bump up our stats either way, so feel free to kind of play around and do as you like. But I definitely think if you want to have the most well-rounded version of this build, and the version that best synergizes with the equipment that I'm going to be suggesting, then bumping up the Charisma here does make sense. We do get another cantrip at this point, and it really doesn't matter what you pick. Mage Hand just has to be utility, so that would be my pick. And then we also do get another level DOS spell at this level, and again, it's really up to you whatever you want to pick here. Again, I kind of like the more utility options for the most part, and if we kind of want to lean into that kind of stealthy archer aspect that kind of has become synonymous with archers as well, thanks Todd, we can go for invisibility here, but also things like Cloud of Daggers, Detect Thoughts, Enhanceability, Heat, Metal could all work for us, so feel free to pick whatever you like. I just smacked my desk, I'm sorry if you heard that. Alright, you may have noticed a lot of weird cuts in between the levels of this build. For some reason, whenever the levels change, the character is naked for like a frame or two, and I've just been staring at like Elf Schlong for like more seconds than I would like to in this video, so if you see a lot of weird jump cuts in between the levels, that's why. I just said Elf Schlong. Oh, why is this video causing me to lose my mind? I don't know, it's almost Friday. Perhaps I'm just in a good mood. Anyways, next up at level 5 of Bard, we are going to get a bunch of really useful things. Font of Inspiration now makes its our Bardic Inspiration recovers on a short rest as well as a long rest, meaning that we now get all of our extra resources back on a short rest, making us much more versatile, I suppose. We're not as dependent on long rests. Also, our Bardic Inspiration is going to get improved to a D8, meaning all of our flourishes are now going to do more damage. And finally, we do get access to level 3 spells at this point, and I love Glyph of Warding on ranged builds. Glyph of Warding allows you to set a trap on the ground that can explode with magical or status effects, basically allowing you to deal elemental damage, push enemies away from you, or put them to sleep would be another example, which elves kinda do sometimes. So Glyph of Warding makes perfect sense. Basically, back yourself up into a safe area, put a Glyph of Warding between you and the enemies trying to get to you, and then they have a much harder time reaching you. Makes perfect sense for this build, and I'm quite happy to pick it up. And that is the build. Overall, what you're going to be getting out of this is a ton of power. Between Sharpshooter and our ranged attack options, you're just going to be getting a ton of damage out of your resources. With 4 Bardic Inspiration and 4 Superiority die, that is 8 special attacks per short rest, meaning that you're able to use these resources extremely consistently when we have 3 short rests. You are able to impose disadvantage, making things easier for your allies, knock enemies prone, make enemies drop their weapons, attack multiple enemies at once, push them back, gain AC. You can do so many different things, and you get a ton of utility as well. Healing spells, Vicious Mockery, Hold Person, Glyph of Warding, Speak of Animals for the roleplay, as well as the Cleric levels, giving us things like Shield of Faith, Thaumaturgy, Sanctuary, which is such an amazing spell for this build, you have no idea. There is so much utility and overall just synergy with this build that it probably makes it my favourite ranged build I've done. I think everything just works so well. In addition to even having the War Priest attack charges to just go absolutely ham when you need to, it is just perfecto. I love it. I love it so much. This is... I just realised this whole video I've sounded like Donald Trump. I love it. I love it so much. It's the best build in the world. Is it like... Happy election season, America. We in the UK are having ours as well. Let's just get through it, okay? Right, next up, let's get into the equipment. There's a lot of variance in the equipment for this build, so I'll go over it all. First up, let's go over the weapons. We'll go over the bow first, and of course the bow you're going to want to be wanting to be aiming for with this build is the Gaunter Mail. It straight up looks like Corellion's bow from the picture on the Forgotten Realms wiki. It's the most powerful bow in the game, being a legendary +3 bow. This object glows with light, but you can toggle it off, which I have for this build. On a hit, it can possibly inflict Guiding Bolt on the target, giving you advantage on attack rolls against that creature. That massively helps offset the penalty from Sharpshooter. It's basically just for firing the bow, which is nice. It's also going to give you Celestial Haste once per long rest, which is a special version of haste that only lasts for 5 turns, but does not inflict lethargy when it ends. So again, between this and the War Priest charges, you will have a short period of time where you can just go for absolute maximum burst damage, maybe taking down a powerful boss, which is just insane. You'll gain a ton of attacks in a turn. It also comes with a unique attack called Bolts of Celestial Light, dealing an additional bit of radiant damage, frightening enemies, and then after attacking, ranged weapon attacks made by the Gaunter Mail deal an additional 1 to 4 radiant damage, so you get even more power, and that can be used once per short rest. So another special bow attack to add onto the list. But of course, this is an Act 3 option, and you get it for beating a pretty powerful super boss, so I've got some other options for you. In the early game, we have the Titan String Bow, a +1 bow which deals additional damage equal to our strength modifier, which we dumped. However, the Titan weapon feature that allows us to use our strength modifier has a little quirk to it. It always adds an additional minimum of 1 damage regardless of our strength. So even though our strength is in the floor, it doesn't actually matter because we're still going to be getting a little bit of extra damage, making it still this bow still being the kind of best early game bow for us right now. And I think it doesn't really matter. I mean, you could pick up another bow if you want, but if you wanted to aim for something that is technically the most powerful for when you get it, the Titan String Bow will absolutely work for you. And hell, if you've got some potions of giant strength around, well then, you're not exactly going to do badly. So I think I would still recommend this, even though we've pumped our strength, we've dumped our strength even. So it's up to you, but I would definitely recommend this for the early game. Another Act 3 option, if you're not too keen on the Gaunter Mail for whatever reason, is the Dead Shot. This one also doesn't require you to be a really powerful boss to get, so it might be a good intermediate before you get the Gaunter Mail. And this is great because it reduces our critical hit threshold by 1, meaning that we roll critical hits on a 19 or above, and can stack with other features of kind of similar make. So if you wanted to go for a critical hit build, you can do so. This also doubles our proficiency bonus when rolling ranged weapon attacks with this weapon unless we have disadvantage. So it gives us an even higher chance to hit, which can help offset that Sharpshooter penalty as well. So overall, I would say it's actually quite a nice side grade to the Gaunter Mail. I think they both have different things that they can offer this build, so it's up to you which one you want to go with. Next up, let's get into the melee weapons. We, of course, are using Larethian's Wrath. This is a longsword with the unique property that it only shares with its sister sword, the Fowler Aluv, which you'll know about if you've seen my Illustrate video. It's videos plural, which I will honestly be surprised if you haven't, because, well, yeah. But this comes with the unique property of being finesse, meaning it uses our dexterity, so we're not so multi-ability score dependent, as well as coming with a unique attack called Razor Gale, allowing you to kind of slice with cyclones of wind, dealing extra damage on a cone in front of you. Piercing damage on a longsword as well, which is quite nice. Now, this is a +1 weapon, so I would recommend maybe having the Drakethroat Glaive around to turn it into a +2 with an elemental damage buff as well. If I had to guess, probably Thunder. And especially if you have a sorcerer that can twin cast it, allowing you to have it on both your bow and your sword at the same time, making yourself just completely uber powerful. Overall, I think that can work out pretty nicely, so I would definitely pick up the Drakethroat Glaive. I've not got it to show off here, but it would definitely work. And I didn't end up using it in the combat footage either, and you will see that it doesn't really affect the build too much, but I definitely would recommend having the Drakethroat Glaive to bump up this sword. But of course, we were going to use like a facsimile of Larethian's actual sword, especially when it fits so well into the build. And because we are a melee, we are a ranged character, so we're not going to be using the melee stuff as much, we might as well throw a shield on here as well, and that will allow the dueling style to work, so I've decided to show off a shield I've never shown off. This is the Shield +1. Doesn't sound too impressive, but a +3 to our armor class is nothing to shake at. You can acquire multiple copies of this in Act 3, so you might as well pick one up and just slot it in for that +3 to your thing, and I kind of, to your armor class even, and I kind of like the way it looks on this build. I kind of prefer the look of like the rounded shield. Let's kind of get some Let's get an angle on that. Yeah, there you go. I kind of prefer the look of the rounded shield for this build. I can't exactly explain why, but you could also go for something like Viconia's Walking Fortress, the Shield of the Devout for an extra spell slot. Entirely up to you what you want to do there. I just kind of wanted to show this one off because I feel like fashion-wise, it just works the best for this build. I can't explain it. I'm just drawn to it. But let's get back to the main attraction here. Let's get into the equipment. Now, this is kind of the standard kind of ranged attacker spread for the headpiece here, so I'll go over it quickly. Mask Assault Perception gives you a +2 to attack rolls, initiative rolls, and perception checks, basically making it so you're quicker to act, and can offset that Sharpshooter penalty even more. Between this and Archery, that's a +4 bonus, offsetting that -5 penalty, so we're only at -1. Much better. With advantage, that basically means we're just going to be hitting all the time anyway. But up until then, the Marksmanship Hat, which you can obtain much earlier on, gives you a +1 bonus to your ranged attack rolls, so not quite as good, but can again just still help offset that Sharpshooter, and the best part about it is a cowboy hat. Let me just remember how to... there we go. Which probably doesn't work as well on this build, but hey, I mean, you should... I'm guessing you guys have seen The Fortunate Fall. If not, go check that video out. I make a very cool cowboy. And finally, if you decide you don't care about the chance to hit with your bow, if you feel like you've got enough resources to kind of make it so you're always hitting those attacks anyway, then the Birthright Hat might be a bit better, giving you that +2 to Charisma, bumping it up to a 20, giving all your Bard stuff a bit of extra oomph, as well as some stuff I'll be getting into in a minute. Next up is the Cloak of Protection, just a +1 bonus to our armor class and saving throws. Again, in Corellion's kind of image, he is seen wearing kind of like a golden armor with a blue cape, so I knew I wanted like a cloak on this build, and the Cloak of Protection works quite nicely just as a flat bonus, but I'm sure there's other things you could use if you so desire. Next up, this is purely a fashion choice, and again, both of the armors here are kind of fashion and lore choices, so really you can pop whatever you like in the slot. Again, we have access to every armor in the game, so you can definitely put something more powerful here, but I have gone for the leather armor +2. This is basically just kind of like a light kind of ranger looking armor that I really liked the look of here, so I thought it kind of looked nice and wanted to use it. As you can see, we'll do a quick spin of the character here. Woo, cinematic camera angles, they look a bit choppy, but hey ho. But I think it looked quite nice, and again, it's an armor set I've never really shown off before, and I think it actually looks surprisingly good in this kind of yellow dye. And this is just the basic yellow dye, and I believe this is boreal blue, with the gloves and boots being muddy red. So there you go, that's kind of how I achieved the look we have today. And the leather armor +2 does come with a couple of minor benefits, a +1 bonus to stealth checks and dexterity saving throws and checks as well. So overall, you're just getting a bit more out of your kind of stealth aspect. But if you wanted something a bit more lore-based, you could go for the Elven Chain, which I've never actually shown off on this channel, but I really should at some point in the future. The Elven Chain is a piece of medium armor that comes with 14 armor class, which seems weak, however there are some benefits. You are considered proficient with this armor while wearing it. Cool, you don't need medium armor proficiency to make this work. The wearer has a +2 bonus on initiative rolls and advantage on dex saves. Very great, but our armor class is limited to a +2. But I will use this opportunity to point out some unique things about this armor that I might use for a future build. This armor counts as being unarmored for the purposes of working with features and equipment. No idea why. The Helldusk armor has this too, so I'm assuming any armor that makes you automatically proficient while wearing it can do this. So this will work with things like the Braces of Defense, Monk's Unarmored Movement. That's all I can think of off the top of my head, but basically anything... oh, the Bone Spike Boots. There you go, there's another one. Basically anything that requires you to be unarmored, or at least not wearing armor, will work with this armor. So technically you could just get a little bit more out of your armor class while still being a bit fashionable if you're playing like as a monk, and I definitely will have to use that on like an elven monk build in the future, I think. But again, a literal kind of like high class elven chainmail, I thought I would show it off for this build as kind of a lore thing, but I like the overall look of the leather armor +2 more, and obviously there are better options than both of these if you want to optimize the build. But I'm not just about optimization here, as you've probably already guessed. Next up, the Gloves of Archery, while we already have proficiency with longbows and shortbows, we also gain an additional 2 damage with our ranged weapon attacks, which is just a nice little buff. The reason I've mainly picked this up is because these gloves are literally have the ability called Corellion's Guiding Hand, so how could I not include them? But another really solid option for this build would be the Wondrous Gloves. giving you a +1 to your armor class and an additional bardic inspiration, which also recovers on a short rest, so you gain even more uses out of your bardic features as well as even more AC. Like, we're up to 22 now, which for a basic +2 light armor with a 13 base armor class, that's pretty impressive. So the Wanderer's gloves can also work, or the gloves of archery. It's entirely up to you what you want to pick. Finally, for our main equipment, we have the Boots of Speed. Again, maneuverability around the battlefield is basically a ranged build's most important thing they want to go for. Obviously, the power from Sharpshooter is also really important, but it doesn't matter if you're in the thick of things and can never get a ranged attack off because you're always in melee range and having to deal with opportunity attacks. Sanctuary helps with that, but Sanctuary takes our bonus actions, so unless we want to use our main action to dash as well, we're going to need some other stuff to kind of mitigate this, and Click Heals is great. Basically how I would kind of do this is I would cast Sanctuary, maybe heal ourselves up if we need to heal up with Cure Wounds, and then go for Click Heals on the next turn, because what Click Heals can do is allows us to dash as our bonus action, but even if you don't have Sanctuary up, it comes with the benefit of allowing our movement speed to be doubled, as well as opportunity attacks having disadvantage to hit. So now we don't actually even need Sanctuary to almost guarantee that we're going to be getting out of melee range safely and getting a ton of distance, and then so we can still attack. So basically, Click Heals, get out of there, fire arrows, pew pew pew. Then if you need to, you can use Sanctuary, but then obviously Sanctuary locks you out of attacking, so it's kind of, you have to determine how much you need to guarantee that you're not going to be hit, rather than just taking the chance of a disadvantaged opportunity attacks, which in my experience pretty much never hit, especially when you can have upwards of 22 AC, even more with Celestial Haste up to 24. So this build is definitely going to be dodging a lot. Anyway, this just helps with that. So again, being able to dash as a bonus action and then use your action for all your other shenanigans. So I think the Boots of Speed are perfect for this build, and the fact that a lot of these pieces of kit are obtained fairly early on, with the exception of the headpieces and the bow, this build will come online quite early, which is nice. Now, over to the accessories. I've gone with the Face Semblance Amulet because I just felt like it would make sense for this guy to have advantage on Int, Wiz, and Charisma saving throws. That just felt right to me, but of course you can put whatever you like here. It really doesn't matter. This is more just kind of a lore thing, like a roleplay thing, but you can swap this out for anything you like. But for the rings, however, the rings have something to them. A little strategy I like to call insult cycling. So, we have the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, allowing us to, whenever we hit a creature with a weapon attack, we can cast illusion or enchantment spells as a bonus action. Vicious Mockery is a bonus action, so if we're not spending our bonus action on anything else, we basically just get to get off Vicious Mockery for free. But why does that matter? I mean, yes, it's a little bit of extra damage and disadvantage on your enemy's next attack roll, which is nice, but it doesn't matter that much in the long run. I could throw something like the Risky Ring in here to get advantage on all of my attacks regardless, helping offset Sharpshooter, and that is absolutely something I would recommend as well if you wanted to go down that route. But you can combine the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, allowing you to cast Vicious Mockery as a bonus action, with the Ring of Arcane Synergy, allowing you to, whenever you deal with a deal damage with a cantrip, you gain Arcane Synergy. So, using our Vicious Mockery on a bonus action will trigger this ring, and Arcane Synergy will add our spellcasting modifier to the damage of our weapon attacks. Meaning now, we can add Arcane Synergy, the extra damage from our Flourishes or Battlemaster Maneuvers, Sharpshooter, the extra damage from the Gloves of Archery, like... This build hits very, very hard. Like, a basic attack is going to be dealing upwards of 20 damage at minimum. And, yeah, 35. It's pretty powerful. And again, that's not even showing the Arcane Synergy numbers. That just climbs even higher. With our Charisma, that's a +4 to the damage as well. Like, damn. This build hits hard with a ton of versatility. A ton of different ways to debilitate your opponents. It works great as a team. I love this build. I think it's one of probably the more powerful ranged builds I've made, if not the most powerful. And so I'm very, very proud of it. I'm very, very happy with what I was able to accomplish here. I do think this build would do the creator god of all elves proud. And yeah, that is the build. Overall, you're going to be getting a ton out of this, like I said. The versatility, the utility, the damage, it's all perfect. This build can absolutely erase regular enemies and deal massive damage to bosses. Again, this channel isn't usually about optimization, but with this build kind of just turning out the way it did, I felt like it's great. You get the roleplay benefits from playing with that one level dip of Cleric, to get all that good stuff with the Larethian dialogue and all that. And again, you do get to play this kind of like, oh yes, you shall die a glorious death type of dude. Like, you know what I mean? This guy is gonna be so fun to play. I absolutely love them. But yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? Not much. My previous two videos, the Fortunate Four and the Knight of the Immortal Flame, have done extremely well. They're my two best performing videos in a long time, which is lovely to see that these kind of concepts that I'm really enjoying at the moment are coming through, and I really hope you guys enjoy this build as well, because honestly, oh damn, I just love this one. The combat footage is going to be a little bit strange. Unfortunately, I was having some issues with OBS, and the recording ended slightly early, unfortunately. Before I kind of finished the encounter, but I wanted to keep this footage because, as you can see in the very kind of opening act of the encounter, it's just like, yep, you're dead, yep, you're dead, yep, you're dead, yep, you're dead, and it just kind of worked for showing off this build. And I don't intend to say too much at the end here, because I just kind of don't have that much to say. I mean, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy you're here at the end of the video with me. Not many people get very far into my videos, but if you're here at the end with me, then I'm absolutely happy to have you here. Tell you what, if you made it this far into the video, comment Golden Boy, and I'll know. I'll know. So dumb. That's how you make engagement on YouTube. You tell your viewers to comment random shit in the comments if they got far enough into the video, which this is at the very end. I have no idea if anybody's even still listening. I could just be talking to myself, speaking into an infinite void, screaming, and only hearing the abyss scream back. I'm planning on doing a stream this weekend. I'm going to be doing kind of a weird, kind of like cheaty speedrun type thing, because I need to get a save profile with Dark Urge up to Act 3 with a few unlockables gained throughout certain story events in the game in order to make a new build, which I'm so excited to make. Oh my god, I've got such a good idea for a build on like sometime next week, either Monday or Wednesday, depending on how long it takes to make. Ooh, I'm so excited for that one. I'm really wanting to do that. So I'm going to kind of invite you all with me to kind of just have a casual playthrough of the game. I'm not even kidding. We're going to be level 12 right from the start, just blitzing through the game, getting the things we need to make the video for the next week. So it's just going to be like a casual chatting, I guess, build making stream in a way, where we can come and discuss things live. And if we get that done quick enough, I'll probably switch to Elden Ring, or I might discuss a project I've been working on, not a video project, a tabletop project, shall we say, that I'd kind of like people's input on, but that might be its own dedicated stream sometime in the future. And since this is the second to last deity build I have lined up, I've got the one next week, which is going to be Ogma. We will have to do another deity build live stream next week to kind of do some more, and hopefully, if we're efficient enough, we'll be able to actually finish all of the selectable in-game deities in that stream, meaning that the deity build series is coming to an end soon-ish. I mean, I only upload one of these a week, so you probably still got a couple of months of these videos left, but damn, longest running series on the channel so far. What an accomplishment. Anyways, I've probably rambled on so long that the combat footage has long been over, so I'm going to leave it here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. That was a good one.